My name is Justine, and I am an elementary school teacher. That day, when I arrived at my classroom, I found only one student present out of a class of 18. At first, I thought it was some kind of collective prank, but then parents began checking their home surveillance footage and discovered that all the missing children had woken up at exactly 2:17 a.m., left their homes in a disturbingly unnatural manner, and vanished into the darkness. When the police questioned Alex, the only child who showed up, he claimed he knew nothing. A large-scale search was launched. The school closed for a month, and almost everyone in our small town joined the effort. But it was all in vain. The children had disappeared without a trace. A month later, to avoid further disrupting the education of the remaining students, the school had to reopen. The night before classes resumed, the school held a support group meeting. Attendees included counselors, parents, and me, the homeroom teacher, under suspicion. The principal had hoped the session would help everyone process the grief, but one angry parent insisted the issue wasn't about sadness, it was about something being terribly wrong. He demanded I explain why I, as the homeroom teacher, hadn't noticed any signs before the children vanished. I was restless throughout the event. When I spoke, I could only apologize repeatedly. But apologies weren't enough for the furious parents. As the situation grew tense, the principal ended the meeting early and escorted me out. He told me I needed rest and a clearer mind the next day. When he asked if I had somewhere to stay that night, I remained silent. He advised me to go straight home and keep a low profile. I felt deeply wronged. The disappearances weren't my fault, and I had nothing to do with it. After leaving, I went directly to the supermarket, ignoring a homeless person asking for money at the entrance, and headed straight to the alcohol aisle. I bought 2 bottles of wine, hoping to numb my frustration. But that was when the harassment began. First, an anonymous call warned me to watch my back. Then, at night, I kept hearing knocks on my door, but whenever I looked through the peephole or window, no one was there. I thought I was imagining things until one moment, right after I let my guard down, I heard a terrifying sound outside. Too scared to make a noise, I froze. Standing alone on the silent street, I saw no one around, but the word witch, spray-painted in red on my car, made it clear someone was targeting me. The next day, school reopened, but I was suspended. The principal, worried about provoking the agitated parents, placed me on paid leave until everyone could act more rationally. Alex was transferred to another class. I couldn't accept being labeled a witch. I wanted to talk to Alex, but the principal firmly refused. As the only witness, Alex was already under media scrutiny, and investigators had searched his home. The principal didn't want him further traumatized and didn't trust me not to cross the line. But I didn't give up. I went to the police station under the pretext of reporting the vandalism to my car. The officer said they could file a report but couldn't investigate who was behind it. I acted accepting because my real goal was to meet my ex-boyfriend, a cop I used to be involved with. That night, he came to a bar after I reached out. We started with small talk, like old times. After a night together, I finally asked what I really wanted to know.
How's work?
How the investigation was progressing. I pressed him about the 17 missing children, saying those in charge should take it seriously. He responded irritably that he wasn't a detective, was badly hungover, and hadn't expected to be grilled about the case. I explained I wasn't interrogating him, I was just wondering if I needed to solve this myself. He assured me the police were on it and told me to relax, that no one was slacking. But his dismissive attitude made it clear. The police had made no progress. Angry and disappointed, I didn't let it show.
Suck my dick.
I knew I could only rely on myself now, so I began following Alex. On my first attempt, I found where he lived. After watching him enter, I approached the red house. No one answered the doorbell or my knocks. Strangely, all the windows on the first floor were covered with newspapers. I circled the house and found a small gap in a window facing the garden. Peering inside, I saw 2 figures sitting in the dark, but I couldn't make out who they were. I reported this to the principal, but he dismissed it. He'd already received complaints about me ringing doorbells and peeping through windows, behavior unbefitting a teacher. He told me to control myself. Feeling helpless once again, I returned to the supermarket to buy more wine. This time, a woman named Donna followed me and publicly attacked me. It turned out she was the wife of my ex, the cop I'd met. I had unknowingly become the other woman. I didn't fight back. After the assault, I went home alone to rest. That night, I dreamed of my classroom. This time, all the children were there, but they were all sitting with their heads bowed low, completely silent. Then, Alex suddenly moved. The next day, I went directly to Alex's house. I tried to ask him about the disappearances, but he yelled at me to go away and slammed the door. With no way in, I began staking out the house from across the street, even spending nights sleeping in my car. But during one deep sleep, I failed to notice the door of Alex's house opening. A strange woman, holding something, walked out stiffly. Step by step, she approached my car and got in.
I am Archer, the father of one of the missing children. Since that night, my life has completely turned into a nightmare. My child also vanished that night. I reviewed the surveillance footage over and over, but found nothing. After that, I drove to the police station myself and questioned the chief about the investigation's progress, only to receive vague and dismissive replies. I firmly believe the lack of progress is because the police are letting Justine roam free instead of detaining and interrogating her. I had looked into Justine's background and found she wasn't as innocent as she seemed. She had previously been fined for drunk driving and fired from her last school for misconduct. Someone with a record like that was capable of doing something wrong again. Yet the chief insisted that none of the evidence pointed directly to Justine, so they had no grounds to arrest her. Frustrated with the police's inaction, I was the first to speak up at the support group, loudly accusing Justine of negligence. I shouted that I wanted to know what really happened in that classroom, why it was her class, and why she was the only one left unharmed. I had hoped public pressure would force her to confess, but in the end, the principal escorted her away. I refused to give up. That night, I followed Justine secretly and spray painted the word witch on her car in red. After venting my anger, I returned home and rewatched the footage again and again. That night, I had a dream where I left my body exactly at 2:17 and saw my child running out of the house. I chased desperately after them until we reached a house that looked exactly like mine, down to the furniture and layout. I rushed to a bedroom on the second floor and found my child lying in bed, asleep. I ran over and asked where they were and what had happened, but my child just stared back silently. Overwhelmed, I broke down sobbing and told them I was sorry that I had failed to protect them. I said I had always wanted to say this because I regretted everything deeply and that I loved them so much. The truth was, I had been too strict with my child in the past. It was only after losing them that I realized how much I loved them. This belated love made me more desperate than anyone to find my child. But no matter how many times I scanned the footage, I couldn't find any useful clues. Then, one morning, as I glanced outside my door, I noticed something. The path my child had taken pointed directly toward an electrical tower. I immediately drew a straight line on a map from my home to the tower, marking a preliminary search area. To confirm this, I contacted another family whose child had gone missing, obtained their route, and drew a second line. Using the intersection of these two lines as a center point, I finally narrowed down the search area. But on my way to visit another family, I ran into Justine at a gas station. All my pent-up rage erupted. I confronted her immediately, and we got into a heated argument, each accusing the other without reaching any understanding. Suddenly, Justine looked behind me, her face pale with fear. A figure was charging toward us. As it got closer, I realized in shock that it was the principal, his face injured and his expression vacant, as though he was under some kind of spell.
And not just with me, but with anyone that I've worked with, they've never allowed us to sort of limit our vision of what we wanted to be. And for me,
Stop him, but he was completely out of control, lunging wildly at Justine. What could have made the principal turn out like this?
in the propulsion test area,
I'm Paul, a police officer and also the son-in-law of the police chief. A few days ago, I got a call from my wife Donna. She's the chief's daughter, and I've always been afraid of her. When I found out she was coming back 3 days early, I put on a happy face and told my father-in-law about it. But the moment I turned around and walked away, my expression went numb and I felt completely empty inside. Just as I stepped out of the station, I happened to see Justine coming to file a report. At the time, it didn't cross my mind that it might be intentional, I just thought it was a coincidence. Later, while out on patrol, I noticed that shady homeless guy, James. Thinking he was trying to break into a house, I immediately chased after him and finally caught him in an alley. He nervously explained that he was working around there and had lost his keys, which was why he was trying to climb through a window. I didn't believe him and brought him back to the squad car to search him. He kept saying he didn't have any weapons on him, but while checking his pockets, I suddenly felt something sharp prick my finger. I hurried to stop the bleeding, and that's when I noticed the dash cam was recording everything. I was afraid the footage of me roughing him up would get out and lead to a complaint. So I had no choice but to let him go, though not before threatening him and warning him never to show his face around here again. All the frustration in my life was making me angrier, and I needed an outlet. Right at that moment, Justine texted me, asking to meet. That night, we spent the whole night together outside. I thought I'd gotten away with it, but the next day when I got home, I found out Donna had returned early. It only took a few words from her for me to confess to the affair. And that's what led to the scene where Justine got beaten up in the supermarket while I stood back and didn't dare intervene.
I'm James, a homeless addict. To feed my addiction, I've long since spent all of my mother's savings. Since I don't work or earn money, I survive by stealing. Today, I took a pair of stolen headphones to sell at a shop. The walls were covered with missing child posters offering a $50,000 reward for any information leading to the kids. I glanced briefly but didn't pay much attention. When the headphones didn't sell for the price I wanted, I decided to break into a house again. I went to Alex's home and saw the untidy yard. Assuming no one was home, I climbed in through a storage window on the second floor. I grabbed a pillowcase to use as a bag and started recklessly searching for anything valuable. It never crossed my mind why all the windows were sealed shut. When I noticed a man and woman sitting motionless on the couch, I was startled at first, but they were so still, I thought they were dolls. My fear quickly faded. After ransacking the kitchen for silverware, I didn't leave right away. Instead, I grew curious about the basement. The moment I went down, I was stunned it was filled with the missing children. Terrified, I turned and ran, even dropping the utensils I'd just stolen in my panic. As I bent down hurriedly to pick them up, the two figures on the couch suddenly stood up and began making eerie, muffled growls. I was scared out of my mind, cursed under my breath, and bolted out without looking back. After escaping, I rushed back to the shop to sell the stolen items. While waiting for the owner to pay me, my eyes drifted again to the missing posters. $50,000 is a huge amount for someone like me. Desperate for money, I immediately ran toward the police station, but just one block away from the station, I ran into Paul. He had just stepped out. Not wanting a direct confrontation, I quickly hid in a nearby wooded area. Deep in the woods, I thought I saw a witch-like figure motioning to me. Afraid of being cursed, I turned and ran back to my tent. Just as I caught my breath, a dark figure appeared outside. It was Paul.
We get there and how I can enable team members to grow in their own positions and their own capabilities to help.
He immediately pointed his gun at me, and to save my own life, I had no choice but to tell him where the children were hidden, though it meant I'd never see that reward money. We arrived at Alex's house, and Paul knocked on the door, identifying himself as police. The door opened quickly, and he went inside. It wasn't until late that night that he came out, pale, trembling, and utterly disoriented.
Hey! Help me! Why did the principal suddenly turn into that crazed pursuer? It all started one afternoon. I had called the principal, telling him how unsettling Alex's home situation felt, and asked if he could conduct a home visit under the pretext of child welfare. He was initially reluctant to get involved, but to ease my concerns, he agreed to first invite Alex's parents to the school for a meeting. However, the person who showed up wasn't Alex's mother or father, it was his aunt, his mother's sister. Her clothing was oddly old-fashioned, like something from the last century, but the principal didn't pay it much mind. From her, we learned that Alex's parents were suffering from an illness that prevented them from leaving home, and recently, the aunt had been taking care of him. Although she wasn't the legal guardian, the principal, strict about procedure, insisted on speaking only with a guardian and naturally suggested a home visit. He completely failed to notice that while he was speaking, the aunt's gaze kept drifting towards some ribbons nearby. On a day off, the principal and his wife were watching TV at home when suddenly the doorbell rang. It was the aunt, standing there out of breath. She said she had walked a long way just to ask for a drink of water. The principal thought it was strange, why come all the way to his house when there were shops everywhere? But his kind-hearted wife let her in and asked the principal to get her a bowl of water. Then the aunt asked a very bizarre question.
You haven't contacted them, right?
No, I haven't. What is?
Without warning, she used a ribbon-tied branch to cut her own palm, stained the branch with her blood, and then while the principal's wife handed her a towel, swiftly cut off a lock of the wife's hair. The principal immediately reached for his phone to call the police, but as he dialed, the aunt rang a small bell, tied the hair to the branch, and snapped it in two. Instantly, the principal seemed possessed. He used his head to bludgeon his wife to death. Only when the aunt threw the branch into the bowl of water did he stop. But her witchcraft wasn't over. She picked up the broken branch, wrapped a strand of my hair around it, and snapped it again. With that sharp crack, the principal bolted out the door. He ran straight through town until he reached the gas station where he lunged at me while I was arguing with Archer. With Archer's help, I managed to run inside the station's store to hide. But it was like, the principal knew exactly where I was. He forced his way in, smashed my car window with his fist, and I was so terrified I had to drive away quickly. He kept chasing me, determined to kill me, with Archer following close behind in his car. At an intersection, the principal, completely out of his mind, was hit by another car and thrown into the air. The police were quickly on the scene. Archer and I were taken to the hospital. Fortunately, our injuries were minor. After this, Archer finally let go of his suspicions toward me. He recognized the way the principal ran was exactly the same as the movements of his own child on the surveillance footage from the night of the disappearance. I was no longer the suspected mastermind in their eyes.
Alex Lilly lives in this house.
The secret hidden in my house goes back to 1 month ago. An aunt I hadn't seen in over a decade suddenly showed up at our door. She said she was seriously ill and probably wouldn't live more than a month. Out of pity, my parents let her stay. After she moved in, she remained bedridden. I peeked into her room once. All I saw was a wig, a potted plant, and her lying still, barely alive. At first, her presence didn't seem to affect our daily life. But then one day after school, something strange happened. My dad, who always picked me up, wasn't there. I had to walk home alone. I thought maybe my parents were busy with work. But when I entered the house, I found them sitting blankly at the dining table like puppets. I asked why they didn't come get me, but they just emotionlessly said,
"Hey, X-Man, how was school?"
Meanwhile, my aunt, who had seemed so weak, was now moving around energetically. I knew something was wrong. I threw a cup of water at my dad, but he didn't even get angry. He just slowly wiped his face. My aunt, though, was furious. She ordered me to go upstairs and sleep immediately. Too scared to disobey, I endured that terrifying night. The next morning, I came downstairs and saw my parents still sitting motionless at the table. My aunt, now dressed differently and sitting at the head of the table, spoke to me coldly.
Now, before you go to school today, I want you to promise that you will not tell a living soul that I am here or that your parents are resting like they are.
At first, I refused. But then she took out a branch tied with my parents' hair, cut herself with it, and snapped the branch. Even though my parents showed no pain, I couldn't bear to see them harmed. I agreed to keep her secret. After that, life continued on the surface. I went to school, came home, but my parents never moved from that table. Worried, I asked my aunt what was wrong. She simply told me to feed them. So that became my new duty. I couldn't cook, so every day I bought cans of food from the supermarket to feed my parents and myself. Then one night, my aunt grew weak again. She told me the hospital couldn't cure her illness, and that now her only hope was me.
Bring an object from each of your classmates home to me.
I stayed calm and made a deal with her. If you get better, will you go back home? She replied,
I go back home.
Wanting to free my parents, I went to school the next day, and during PE class, I took items from 17 of my classmates. Miss Justine noticed I was acting strange and tried to talk to me, but I pushed her away. I rushed home with a backpack full of my classmates' things and handed everything to my aunt. At 2:15 that night, she began a ritual. I watched closely as she chanted and gestured. Then she led me to the front door. What I saw next shocked me. My classmates, as if summoned, walked one by one into our basement. It was then I realized my aunt had lied to me, but for my parents' sake, I didn't expose her. I even helped during the police investigation, cleaned the house, and watched her hide the children whenever inspectors came. As soon as they left, she summoned the kids back. After school reopened, I was placed in another class, but now I had 17 more mouths to feed the trapped children. Every day I bought more cans. Then one day, I came home with 2 big bags of canned food and found Officer Paul and the homeless man, James, inside. I ran upstairs to tell my aunt. She only warned me, "Don't cross the silver line." I obeyed and returned to my room, but looking out the window, I saw Miss Justine and Archer watching our house from across the street. They were trying to find a way in when suddenly the front door opened by itself. Paul stood there, motioning them inside. Since he was a police officer, they trusted him and entered unknowingly, crossing the silver line. Instantly, both Paul and James turned aggressive and attacked them. In the struggle, Archer fell down the basement stairs and discovered the children. I knew it was time to fight back. The moment I stepped over the silver line, my parents lunged at me. Thankfully, the second floor had many rooms. I kept dodging through doors, avoiding direct confrontation. Downstairs, Miss Justine was being choked by Paul until she managed to grab his gun and break free. Archer ran into the basement looking for his son, but my aunt ambushed him in the dark and controlled him just like she had with the principal. She commanded him to kill Miss Justine. While the 3 adults fought below, I stayed calm upstairs. I remembered my aunt's ritual. I took a strand of her hair, tied it to a branch, and with all my strength snapped it.
Airline industry matured through, they've had all that development cycle and everything. They still develop their materials and they're tested as well. And it's no different for launching rockets, right? There's going to be a launch, and there's a possibility of the public being at risk or the crew being at risk. We have to understand what those operational limits are, so that we can make sure that everyone's safe.
Well, it has been great getting to chat with you, Christine. Thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been great.
A terrible scream followed as the children tore my aunt to pieces. Archer regained his senses and followed the broken markings until he found the children standing together, covered in blood. I had saved my parents, but sadly, after being under witchcraft for so long, my parents and the 17 children never fully recovered. They still need to be fed by others. Over time, some of the children have begun to speak again. As for me, I eventually moved away from that town and started a new life with another family.